Everyone will really kazoo you. You make the whole world shine.
You love me? Sometimes I love you. Jingle bells, jingle, jingle, jingle bells, jingle, jingle, jingle all the way.
Well, if you don't, I'll tell you how. Just yell.
Puppets. They've captured our hearts and imagination for generations. These moving sculptures have the ability to make us laugh, cry, and conjure up a whole range of human emotions. Well, that's what the art of puppetry is all about. Unlike any other art form, puppetry has the capacity to breathe life into inanimate objects and make us believe in a pretend world. For centuries, puppets have been a favorite form of American entertainment. This magical medium called puppetry has grown and changed dramatically over the past 300 years. What is the American puppet? Where did the American puppet tradition begin? And who and what influenced puppetry in America? Join us on a journey of wonder as we chronicle puppetry's fascinating and colorful evolution. This is the story of the American puppet. The tradition of American puppetry begins with the settling of the New World. The early puppeteers were itinerant showmen from England, France, and Germany who brought with them various forms of puppetry from their native lands. It is here that the American puppet tradition took root. Colonial puppeteers traveled from town to town, finding work at fairs, taverns, and on city streets. One of the more popular types of puppets found on the street corners of colonial America were peddler dolls, or street puppets. They were hinged wooden dolls on strings that danced in time to music played by the traveling showmen. Upon entering a town, these showmen would advertise their puppet exhibition using horns, bells, or speaking trumpets.
For the show's about to begin, right here.
Others would post printed playbills or broadsides. One of the first documented newspaper advertisements appeared in the Pennsylvania Gazette on December 30th, 1742.
At the sign of the Coach and Horses against the State House in Chestnut Street, Philadelphia, every evening at 7 o'clock precisely will be acted in several scenes an agreeable comedy or tragedy by changeable figures of 2 feet high. A sight of sea and ships, a merry dialogue of Punch and Joan, his wife, with several other pleasing entertainments.
Towards the middle part of the 18th century, European shadow theater arrived in America, and it became a popular form of entertainment. One of the more famous shadow puppet plays in the 18th and 19th centuries was The Broken Bridge. It came from France, and it was first performed in Boston in 1745. However, it was not written down until almost 100 years later.
I need to get across the bridge today. How can I get across the bridge? Well, you can do what the ducks do and swim.
Through advertisements, newspapers, and historic records, we are able to document the presence of puppetry in America throughout the 18th century. As a matter of fact, on November 16, 1776, George Washington made an entry in his account book that he spent 11 shillings 6 for a puppet show. Prior to the American Revolution, the comical tragedy of Punch and Joan, a tradition in Europe for well over 100 years, found its way to America. The Punch character features a large hooked nose and protruding chin. He is portrayed as a commoner, a great spokesman for liberty, who is constantly at odds with all authorities, including his wife and the devil.
Punch was always a hero of the common man. He had a rough language, he behaved in ways that are not proper in society, and therefore served as a sort of release for those watching him. Punch and his wife Judy would always play kissy face and have a wonderful love relationship, which would end up in an argument. Among jobs that Punch was always assigned to do was to babysit. And Punch didn't have much luck with babies either.
Punch and Judy's shows during this period were strictly an adult entertainment, and although many stout religious groups found the shows offensive and immoral, Punch and Judy remained a popular form of entertainment in America well into the next century. Puppet showmen at this time earned a meager living. It was a tough life. Many puppeteers found employment with circuses and fairs in the summer months. In the winter, they played indoors at dime museums among magicians, menageries, and sideshow freaks. These types of venues forced many puppeteers to change their acts from full-length dramatic productions to short variety acts where marionettes performed stunts and tricks. Also, because of their association with circuses and dime museums, puppet shows were now stereotyped as slapstick novelty acts and not considered a theatrical art form. Most stayed with the familiar Punch and Judy and trick marionette shows to meet the expectations and demands of the public. When vaudeville began to grow in popularity, puppeteers had to cut the length of their grand-scale spectacles to fit the vaudeville format. Puppet performances that once lasted an entire evening now had to fit a 12-minute time slot and were typically filled with trick puppets and slapstick humor. Up until this time, many puppeteers couldn't afford the time or expense to craft well-sculpted puppets. Many of the characters were crudely carved and poorly painted. Their costumes were quickly stitched with no attention to detail. The unrefined look posed no problem in candle or gas-lit theaters, but with the advent of the electric light, puppeteers were compelled to create a more aesthetically pleasing puppet character. Puppetry in America was beginning to take shape. So, from the colonial period up until the end of the 19th century, American puppetry was really an imitation or reproduction of European puppet traditions. However, the dawning of the 20th century marked a new chapter in the story of the American puppet. The early part of the 20th century was a time of unprecedented cultural and societal change. Women were finding a new voice, and children were no longer considered laborers. There were new attitudes about children and education. And there were an increasing number of hobby-oriented publications for children, which included puppetry. These developments helped to establish an atmosphere conducive to the growth of puppetry in America. Around 1915, an artist by the name of Tony Sarg came to America. Sarg, an illustrator by trade, had a fascination with puppets. This fascination grew into a lifelong passion which changed forever the art of puppetry in America. Sarg dabbled with marionettes and would perform them for friends at social functions in New York. Sarg got his first professional break when a German-based puppet company was unable to fulfill its Broadway contract due to the outbreak of World War I. During his first run on Broadway, Sarg learned a lot about figure construction and drama, but realized to continue his success, he needed help. Sarg sought the assistance of Matt Cyril, a fellow illustrator who helped refine the marionettes. Sarg's company grew. In the off-season from Broadway, his company went on the road touring all 48 states. The company attracted many puppeteers who later became famous in their own right.
It was a very interesting life with Tony Sarg. You worked from the latter part of September until May, traveling every day. We played 6 days a week. We gave 2 shows a day the whole season.
Tony Sarg helped to commercialize puppetry too. He created and designed the large character balloons for the Thanksgiving Day Street pageant in New York City. Today we know the pageant as the Macy's Day Parade. In effect, what Tony Sarg created were inverted marionettes, string puppets upside down. Over the years, Sarg designed hundreds of these massive balloon puppets and was involved in just about every stage of production. Tony Sarg also experimented with film. He created a series of shadow plays and used various methods and techniques to manipulate the figures to create a fascinating visual story. In addition, Tony Sarg wrote children's books that explained how puppets were made. Sarg, unlike puppeteers before him, was willing to share the secrets of how puppets were constructed and manipulated. His willingness to share his craft created a surge of interest in puppetry throughout the country. Tony Sarg is responsible for pioneering an American puppet tradition. There are many people who have contributed to what puppetry is now. But Tony Sarg in the 20th century brought about an excitement for this art form that continues to this day. Tony Sarg is regarded by many as the father of modern American puppetry. The United States was prospering during the 20s, and so was puppetry. During this period, a majority of the puppet companies tailored their programs for children. However, there were some noteworthy puppeteers who made efforts to search for an adult audience that would appreciate puppetry as a theatrical art form. One such company that focused on finding an adult audience was the Yale Puppeteers. Harry Burnett, Foreman Brown, and Roddy Brandon toured the country and eventually settled in Hollywood, California. They opened a small theater on Alvera Street in the late 1920s, featuring marionette dramatic plays and musicals for adult audiences. The small theater on Alvera Street soon became a favorite spot for the famous, as documented by their signatures on the theater wall. Several years later, they opened another theater called The Turnabout. At one end of the theater, there was a puppet stage. On the opposite end, a stage for live performers. The audience sat in old reversible trolley car seats.
The seats for the theater were from old streetcars, and they had a back that would shift from one side to the other. And at intermission, the people that were running the theater changed the backs of the seats so that they faced the other way. And that was lots of fun. Foreman recounts the story many times, but I saw it, and it's absolutely true. People would come back wondering, where the hell were they sitting? Because everything was backwards now. And it was really funny listening to people say, do you know where Hot and Bothered is? And, and they'd finally get settled, and then the show would continue.
Skating is a joy with a handsome boy. Not another sport is half so gay. Skating in the dark, skating is a lark. You can fling your cares away. Hey, gliding on the ice, golly, but it's nice. Laugh at all your troubles and your care. You'll have no regret if you don't forget. You ought to have on your thick underwear.
The Yale Puppeteers will long be remembered for their elaborate miniature musical comedies and for establishing one of the first permanent puppet theaters in America.
And the whole wide world will like you. Turn about, turn about, turn about.
During this growth period of puppetry in America, another woman, Ellen Van Valkenburg of the Chicago Little Theater, had a tremendous influence on puppetry. She convinced puppet performers that they should both manipulate the puppet and speak the lines as well. Until this time, 2 performers were hired to create one character, one doing the voice, the other the manipulation. In addition, her dramatic insight and theatrical training helped to elevate puppetry in America from a spectacle to a legitimate art form. She was also the first person to coin the term puppeteer. During the 1920s, another puppet company emerged, headed by a young woman from Monticello, New York, Sue Hastings. The success of Sue Hastings' career in puppetry, which spanned over 40 years, was due in part to Tony Sarg. Hastings attended classes taught by Matt Cyril, Sarg's master puppeteer, and eventually became one of Sarg's greatest rivals. At the height of her career, Sue Hastings had a dozen traveling puppet troupes featuring a cast of over 2,000 marionettes performing shows from Broadway and World's Fairs to the White House. Sue Hastings was a pioneer in the integration of puppets into the adult professional theater and was aptly known as America's puppet showwoman. Historical and political events affected the art of puppetry as well. In 1929, the Great Depression hit, forcing many of the big puppet touring companies to split apart. The individual survivors of the big companies became single operators. In order to reduce the expense of the cumbersome staging required for marionette shows, some puppeteers, like Frank Paris, eliminated the marionette bridges and screens and began performing their marionettes in full view of the audience. Other puppeteers found work with the Federal Theater Project. The low budgets assigned to the projects created an atmosphere that was conducive to puppetry. The federal government's desire to get youth involved in seeing theater also gave puppetry an important place in the federal theater. Because of their ability to travel, puppet plays were brought to small rural communities across the country. During the years of the WPA, 1934 to 1941, government relief trained hundreds of puppeteers who performed free puppet shows to the public.
In Buffalo, a traveling marionette theater has become an extremely popular project. Performances given by request at public schools and institutions have brought entertainment and instruction to more than 2 million children through the reenactment of historical episodes. The Marionette Theater finds its most enthusiastic audience at the Crippled Children's Home in Buffalo, where the applause of the youngsters is echoed by physicians and nurses who consider the marionettes excellent medicine. This is a federal theater project. Under the Works program, artists, actors, writers, and musicians contribute their share to the cultural development of the community.
During the 1930s, radio and movies began to come into their own. It is during this time that we see the first puppet character rise to national attention and recognition via, of all mediums, the radio. In December of 1936, ventriloquist Edgar Bergen and his wooden friend Charlie McCarthy were guests on the Rudy Valley radio program and became an instant success. That performance launched a long and successful radio and film career. Charlie McCarthy and Edgar Bergen's witty dialogue was heard on the radio for almost 20 years and continued in TV and nightclubs until 1978.
And now for the boy who has given the most to the screen in the past year.
I want to thank you for this great honor, Charlie.
Huh? You're not the boy.
Oh, I feel that I don't deserve... What?
You're not the boy.
Well, I've been framed. Who is it?
Well, it's Mickey Rooney.
Mickey Rooney?
Yes.
Never heard of it.
Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy were household names. It was the first time in history that a puppet enjoyed so much popularity. Charlie McCarthy became the first American puppet icon. Rufus and Margot Rose, who were billed as America's foremost artists of the marionette theater, were a husband and wife team who had met while working for Tony Sarg. Like puppeteers of the period, they performed in a variety of venues across the United States. The Roses and their marionettes gained notoriety while performing for record crowds at the Chicago World's Fair in 1939.
I really got a spark, which interested me in puppetry, when my sister, who was 3 years older than I, took our teddy bears apart and put them together loosely so they would move. And when I got a hold of them and found I could move them, I could do it, make things of them myself. That's when I was touched.
During their career, the Roses pioneered the use of marionettes in the production of films. Their first endeavor was Jerry Pulls the Strings, a product promotional film for the American Can Company. With that success, they later went on to produce puppet films of classic fables.
Then, Genie, I command you to bring 40 gold trays filled with the most precious jewels in the land.
It shall be done, Master. Approach the throne, young Prince Aladdin.
I am not a prince, gracious majesty, but Aladdin, a lowly subject of your kingdom.
The Roses also made their mark in the developing television industry as the puppeteers for the Howdy Doody Show, and later went on to produce their own award-winning children's show, The Blue Fairy, on Chicago's WGN. Rufus was best known for his innovations in puppet construction, and Margot was known for her sculpting and superb manipulation. During their career, the Roses shared their innovations and mentored many puppet artists, notably Burr Tillstrom and Jim Henson. It was at this time, too, that another puppeteer, Paul McFarlane, helped to define puppet theater. McFarlane was instrumental in establishing puppetry as a legitimate art form in American culture. Throughout his career, his collection of puppets and extensive research greatly influenced puppetry in America. One of his greatest contributions was the establishment of the first Puppetry Conference and Festival, which later grew into the organization known as the Puppeteers of America. Puppeteers of America, over the years, has nurtured young puppeteers and advanced the artistry and professionalism of puppetry in America. Another puppeteer who began his career with Tony Sarg was Bill Baird. Baird was first inspired to work with puppets after viewing one of Sarg's performances of Rip Van Winkle. Baird's original artistic puppet designs and characters would have one of the greatest impacts on American puppetry. Baird's career spanned more than 50 years. His first endeavors included producing commercial puppet shows for large corporations. Baird, working with his wife Cora, also entertained audiences in several Broadway shows and found success in producing educational and public relation films.
Nowadays, in whatever city, town, or village we may live, we find ourselves sharing the good things of living with our neighbors.
I got a call to make. Get off the line.
But you're interrupting my call.
Now look here.
Look here yourself.
Say, buddy, think you own the telephone?
Sure. Who do you think you are?
I'll tell you who I am.
Never mind who you are.
I mind.
Get off my line.
Get off your...
Bill was also an innovator in the emerging television industry. In 1950, he created his own television series called Life with Snarky Parker.
Say, the next time you bakes me a cake, you could put the file inside. Then when I cuts the cake, what a charming and unsuspected surprise waits in store for me.
Oh, what a wonderful romantic idea.
I couldn't have done better myself, Nolan. For me, our worries is practically a thing of the past. Before the trial ever gets started, we'll be out of here.
A lot of the puppetry on TV before that was theatrical puppetry that was adapted. I mean, even Klukel, Fran and Ollie, they still had the little proscenium. And Bill broke that. He had very innovative filming techniques. There's a wonderful thing in Peter and the Wolf where he's kind of got all these puppets going through the forest. The trunks of the trees actually are supporting the puppeteer bridge, and the puppeteers are up there leaping from board to board as they're walking these characters through the forest, all specifically designed to be shot with TV.
Besides television, Bill Baird's marionettes were also featured in motion pictures. The sequence of The Lonely Goat Herd in the 1965 film The Sound of Music was one of Baird's most memorable performances.
boat, hurley, hurley, hurloo. Folks in a town that was quite remote, hurley, 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 hoo. Lusty and clear from the goat herd's throat, hurley, hurley, hurloo.
Oh, oh, lady, oh, 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 lady, oh, lay. Oh, oh, lady, oh, lay. Oh, lady, oh, lay, oh, lay.
Martyr! Gretel the Prince! A prince on the bridge of a castle moat, hurley, 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 hoo.
Men on a road with a load to tote, hurley, hurley, hurloo. Men in the midst of a table-d'oat, hurley, 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 hoo.
Men drinking beer with a foam afloat, hurley, hurley, hurloo. One little girl in a pale pink coat, hurley, 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 hoo.
She yodeled back to the lonely goat, hurley, hurley, hurloo.
Soon her mamma with a gleaming load, hurley, 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 hoo. What a duet for a girl and goat, hurley, hurley, hurloo.
One little girl in a pale pink coat,
lady, oh, lady, oh, lady, woo, woo.
She yodeled back to the lonely goat, lady, oh, lady, oh, lady.
Soon her mamma with a gleaming gloat, lady, oh, lady, oh, lady, What a duet for a girl and goat, lady, oh, lady, oh,
Happy, oh, lady, oh, lady, oh, lady, oh, lady, lady, oh. Soon the duet will become a trio,
lady, oh, lady, oh, lo, oh, lady.
Of all the puppeteers of the 20th century, Bill Baird's artistry and design innovation set new standards in the art of puppetry. He will long be remembered as the man who changed the face of the American puppet. During the years of World War II, puppetry had all but come to a standstill. Most everyone's focus was on the war effort. When peacetime came, new technological advances would bring about great changes to the American way of life. The most dramatic change in American culture was brought about by television. During the early years of television, programmers all over the country needed to fill airtime with entertaining programs. Puppets offered an inexpensive, flexible, and ready solution. The introduction of television marked a major turning point in the history of American puppetry.
Ho, ho, ho! Well, howdy doody, kids, and hiya, Mr. Smith. Hi, little guy, howdy. And Clarabelle, look at all the kids at home and all the kids in the gallery. What time is it, kids? Howdy doody time. Sure, let's sing it good loud now. Let's go.
NBC's Howdy Doody show was responsible for many firsts in television history. They pioneered the art of TV product merchandising, and they were the first to reach 1,000 and 2,000 broadcasts.
When you think of puppetry, you think of television, you really think of Howdy Doody. That would be the first thing that comes to people's mind. And what's amazing is that nobody realizes that that puppet had to be built and created. In fact, he was by a marvelous puppeteer by the name of Velma Dawson.
Every day you'll meet a friend, but do you know how to greet a friend? Well, if you don't, I'll tell you how. Just yell, howdy, howdy! Every day you see.
Howdy Doody became a bona fide pop culture icon.
Well, if you don't, I'll tell you how. Just yell.
In 1947, Paul Winchell and his wooden friend, Jerry Mahoney, of The Winchell-Mahoney Show, was broadcast on NBC. Ventriloquist Paul Winchell built his dummy, Jerry Mahoney, when he was a teenager, and the two stuck together through a lengthy career in radio and television.
Look at this ribbon. Hey, this isn't the usual gavel. Oh, thank you, Nuck.
Yo, thank you for saying thank you, kiddo, but that one ain't mine.
Paul Winchell. He pushed the envelope. He was really inventive. First puppet I ever saw tap dance, but I mean really tap dance. It's the first puppet I ever saw play the drums. And he did that thing where he painted eyes and a nose on his chin, and then the mouth, he shot it upside down. And
Jerry Mahoney got 3 gavels for a Christmas present, and Knucklehead got 3.
Of all the puppeteers that appeared on television, none had a greater impact on the viewing audience than Burr Tillstrom's Kukla, Fran, and Ollie show.
We could make it a double day.
We could do that, couldn't we?
Yes, and I'm dying to meet Paul Puckenschlagel.
Oh, me too.
That'll be just great. Maybe he'll let me run the streetcar.
I don't think he should, but he might.
And as we go down the street, I'll call out, well, here we come! Kukla!
Fran!
And Ollie!
Tillstrom's love for puppetry began at an early age when he performed for children in his neighborhood. He continued working in puppetry through the Federal Theater Project, where he created one of America's most beloved puppet characters, Kukla.
He made this little figure out of it was cloth. It was a cloth figure, and at the time that he was working on Federal Theater, it didn't even have a name. But one day he went backstage and he met Tumanaba, and he played it for her, and she said, "Ah, Kukla," which means in Russian puppet. Kukla, and that's how he got his name.
Tillstrom was unique among puppeteers of his day. He preferred to work with hand puppets instead of the string puppets that were more popular. When Burr was offered a daily television show on WBKB in Chicago, he invited radio personality Fran Allison to join the show. The show was so popular that families planned their dinner around the show, and bars turned off sporting events and stopped serving alcohol so families without TVs could watch. Burr was the voice and life of all the Kuklapolitans, and he never used a prepared script. Kukla and Ollie became America's Punch and Judy.
3 pairs of shoes. Isn't that adorable? And Irving got cheeses, and oh, nobody gave me anything, though.
He was genius.
Here we are again.
Another icon of early children's television was Shari Lewis. Shari Lewis grew up in New York City, where dance, music, and theater training were always a part of her life. Shari first appeared on NBC TV in 1953 with one of her first puppet characters, Dinky. She went on to host a daily television program on WPIX in New York, Kitty Kingdom, featuring puppets Randy Rocket and Taffy Twinkle.
Captain Kangaroo and his people auditioned me, and they said, "Don't you have anything besides these big hard dummies? They're so big and you're so little. Don't you have anything delicate?" And I had Lamb Chop. I just never talked to her. That Thursday, I had a show Saturday, I sat in front of a mirror and I gave Lamb Chop something she wanted of me. And I gave her a real good reason why she needed this. And I gave myself an equally good reason why she could not have it. And then we improvised a basic Stanislavski improvisation. And when I was finished, I was literally stunned because I didn't have to write anything down. It came out good. And I knew that I had found my form.
Her appearance on the Captain Kangaroo show in the 1950s led to her own Saturday morning TV program, The Shari Lewis Show, which aired on NBC from 1957 until 1963.
Maybe the answer to longevity is the truth of the characters.
She sells seashells by the seashore. Some are red, violet is up blue. She sells seashells by the seashore. Isn't that a silly thing to do? Selling shells by the sea is humorous, cause the shells in the sand are numerous. So if you plan to sell any shells by the sea, you aren't going to sell many shells to me. She sells seashells by the seashore. Some are red, violet is up blue. She sells seashells by the seashore. Now let me put it to you. Isn't that a silly thing? Isn't that a silly thing? Isn't that a silly thing to do?
Shari Lewis, along with Lamb Chop and her other lovable puppet characters, entertained generations of children and families from the early 1950s until her passing in 1998. She'll best be remembered as a champion for quality children's television. Her longevity in the industry is unparalleled. The changes that television brought to the art of puppetry are staggering. Television advanced profound changes in puppetry's style, methods of operation, and delivered audiences in the millions. Television also attracted many young puppet artists. One would go on to revolutionize the art of puppetry worldwide. His name was Jim Henson.
Push the button!
Push it! If you don't push that button, I'll push it myself.
Oh, it's gonna be a great act, Kermit. But something's wrong with my bike. If I advance the spark.
Jim Henson began his career in high school performing puppets on a local Saturday morning TV program. In college, he had his own twice-daily show named Sam and Friends. Then in just a few short years, he and his characters would launch a revolution.
And Jim wanted very much to be on television. He was trying all kinds of ways to be able to get onto, not on television, but to work with the media, because it was very new and he loved it. And at that time, Kukla, Fran, and Ollie were on. Bert Hillstrom was on and popular, so that influenced a lot too. And Bill Baird also was on quite a bit, so they influenced him. And so he was intrigued with puppetry and television. And so he took that opportunity, and he went, from the way he told it, he went to the library and got a couple of books on puppetry and came back and tried making a couple and then went in and auditioned.
Sam and Friends produced many of the Muppet characters we know today, including Kermit. Jim's success with Sam and Friends led to guest appearances on national variety shows. Concurrently, Jim began making television commercials for sponsors all over the country. Henson, like Bill Baird, chose not to use a puppet booth or stage. Instead, the camera point of view became his performance area. Jim added floor monitors so performers could see exactly what the viewers were seeing. This simple innovation is the standard for puppeteers in television today. As the Muppets began to grow, Henson assembled a team of talented artists including Jerry Jewell, Don Solon, and Frank Oz. Together they would help shape and refine the look of the Muppets. The team produced the Muppets' first nationally known character, Ralph. About the same time, Henson was asked to create a family of characters for a new children's TV show for PBS, Sesame Street.
Do a dance, dig some dirt, dunk a donut for dessert.
Shows. Jim's characters appealed to a children's audience. However, Jim Henson's goal was to entertain a broader family audience.
They loved doing Sesame Street, but he always stood slightly aside from the children's work. The Muppet Show was really what he had in mind. Right from the beginning, Jim was trying to sell the idea of the Muppet Show. And as such, he became the Kermit of the whole endeavor. Trying to get the Muppet Show going was very much like what Kermit was on the Muppet Show.
Listen, is a teeter board really a big part of the act?
Watch this. Okay, boys. Hey, yup. Come on, next to it. Hey, yup. Louis Jr. Come on. Hey, yup.
He wasn't really exactly like Kermit, but in many ways was the center of all this kind of mayhem activity, and kind of loved it. He loved, Kermit himself was not a very bizarre character, but he kind of loved, Kermit loved all the bizarre goings-on around him. But on the other hand, some of the characters that Jim did, I think people don't realize how much he enjoyed doing them. Dr. Teeth. Dr. Teeth is very unlike Jim, but he loved doing it. That singing really big and that whole kind of attitude was Jim loved doing. And the Swedish Chef, he loved doing the Swedish Chef. He loved those kind of more out there kind of characters that he was able to do with the puppet.
Phenomena. Phenomena. Phenomena.
Never know how much I love you. Never know how much I care. When you put your arms around me, I get a fever that's so hard to bear. You give me fever when you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight, fever in the morning, fever all through the night. Oye, buddy, nada más quiero decirte que no se debe hacer eso. It's not nice. ¿Entiendes? Mírame a mí cuando te hable. Este es mi número, y si tú me fastidias más, te voy a dar una garnata que te va a dejar bobo. Cool it. Sun lights up the morning, moon lights up the night. I light up when you call my name, 'cause you know I'm gonna treat you right. You give me fever when you kiss me. Fever when you hold me tight.
My kind of woman! Besides television, Jim Henson's Muppets have also starred in films and have become some of America's best-loved characters.
Jim also influenced the field radically. He opened the door to audiences. Most people don't realize that Jim Henson made puppetry a household word. The Muppets are known all over the world.
He felt that puppets were very strong, and he felt that he could reach people in a very universal way. He wasn't always successful at it, but anytime he was successful, he really acknowledged it and wanted to do that. He wanted, as he would say, he wanted to be someone who made a difference.
Jim Henson's imagination and genius enabled him to reach audiences young and old throughout the world. The magnitude of his vision and achievements will forever influence the art of puppetry.